Before we dive into this story that will completely change how you think about family loyalty and inheritance, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment and let me know what country you're in. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because stories like this one will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about unconditional love. Also, if this story hits you as hard as it hit me when I lived through it, give it a thumbs up. Trust me, you're going to need something to hold on to for this one. The words came out of my son's mouth on a Tuesday evening in November. Cold, calculated, final. "You're no longer welcome here, Dad." I was standing on the porch of the house I'd helped him buy, the house where I'd spent countless weekends, helping with renovations, babysitting my grandchildren, being the father I thought he wanted me to be. But apparently, I was wrong about that. My name is Robert Winters. I'm 67 years old, and until that Tuesday night, I thought I had a good relationship with my son David. We talked every week. I saw my grandchildren regularly. When David's marriage fell apart 2 years ago, I was the one who helped him through it. When he needed a down payment for his house, I was the one who wrote the check, $22,000. I'd been saving that money for a cruise with my late wife Margaret before she passed. Instead, I gave it to David so he could have a fresh start. But standing on that porch, looking at my son's cold expression, I realized I'd made a mistake. Not the money. The mistake was thinking that generosity would somehow protect me from this moment. "David, what's going on? Did I do something wrong?" He didn't invite me in. Just stood in the doorway, like I was a stranger, like I was someone he didn't want his neighbors to see him talking to. "You did everything wrong, Dad. You've always done everything wrong." The words hit like a physical blow. "I don't understand." "No, you don't. You never understood anything. You think showing up with gifts and money makes you a good father. You think helping with the house makes up for 20 years of being emotionally unavailable." I tried to process what he was saying. "David, I was working. I was trying to provide for. You were trying to avoid dealing with real life, with real emotions, with the fact that Mom was dying and you couldn't handle it. Margaret. Even 2 years after her death, hearing her name in anger felt like a knife to the chest. Your mother had cancer. I was doing everything I could to take care of her and keep the business running, so we could afford her treatment. You were hiding at work while she was scared and alone. That's not true, isn't it? How many of her chemotherapy appointments did you attend? How many nights did you spend holding her hand while she threw up from the medication?" I couldn't answer that, because he was right. I'd buried myself in work during Margaret's illness. It was easier than watching her fade away day by day, but I'd thought David understood that. I'd thought he knew I was doing the best I could. "David, I loved your mother more than anything in the world. Then why weren't you there when she needed you?" The question hung between us like an accusation. Behind David, I could see my grandchildren watching from the living room. Emma, age 8. Marcus, age 6. They looked confused, scared. "Can we please talk about this inside? The kids don't need to hear. The kids don't need to hear the truth, that their grandfather is a selfish man who puts his own comfort above his family. David, please. You want to know why you're not welcome here? Because I don't want my children growing up thinking your behavior is normal. I don't want them to think that love means showing up when it's convenient and disappearing when things get hard." I felt something break inside my chest. "So that's it. After everything I've done for you, after all the help, all the support, all the money, you mean?" I didn't say money, but that's what you meant. "You think buying my affection gives you the right to be in my life. Well, it doesn't." David stepped back and started to close the door. "Wait," I said. "What about Christmas? What about the kids? Find somewhere else to spend Christmas. And don't use the kids as leverage. This is about you and me." The door closed. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. I stood on that porch for 10 minutes, staring at the door, waiting for it to open again, waiting for David to realize he'd made a mistake, waiting for some sign that this was just a fight, not the end of everything. But the door stayed closed. I drove home in a daze. The house felt enormous and empty. Without Margaret, without the promise of seeing my grandchildren on weekends. I sat at the kitchen table and tried to understand what had just happened. When had David's resentment grown so deep? When had I become the villain in his story? I thought about Margaret, about her final weeks when she could barely stay awake for more than an hour at a time. David was right. I hadn't been there enough. I'd been terrified of watching her die, so I'd found reasons to be anywhere else. But I'd thought I was protecting him, protecting both of us. Maybe I'd been wrong about that too. That night, I called my lawyer. Robert, it's late. Is everything okay? Gerald, I need to change my will. Change it how? I want to remove David as beneficiary. Everything. The house, the business, the investments. There was a pause. Robert, are you sure you want to make this kind of decision when you're upset? Maybe we should wait a few days. No, I want to do it tonight. Can you tell me what happened? I told him about the conversation with David, about being told I wasn't welcome in my own son's life anymore. Gerald listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Robert, I've been your lawyer for 20 years. I've seen families destroy themselves over money and hurt feelings. Are you sure this is what you want? I'm sure. What about your grandchildren? Do you want to punish them for their father's anger? I'd been thinking about that. Emma and Marcus didn't deserve to suffer because of what happened between David and me. I want to set up education trusts for the kids, college funds they can access when they turn 18, but nothing for David and the rest of your estate. I thought about that. Margaret and I had always planned to leave everything to David, but David didn't want me in his life. Why should he benefit from my death? Charity. Split it between the Cancer Research Foundation and the Children's Hospital. Robert, just do it. Gerald, tonight. 2 hours later, I had a new will. David would inherit nothing, except the knowledge that he'd thrown away a relationship with his father for the sake of 20-year-old resentment. But here's where the story gets complicated, because 3 days later, I got a phone call that changed everything. Mr. Winters, this is Linda Morrison, Emma's teacher at Ridgemont Elementary. I'm calling about Emma's behavior in class this week. My granddaughter. What kind of behavior? She's been very upset, crying during lessons, not eating her lunch. When I asked her what was wrong, she said her daddy told her that Grandpa Robert doesn't love them anymore. The words hit like ice water. That's not true. I was hoping you could tell me what's happening. Emma adores you. She's been asking when you're coming to visit. I closed my eyes. David had told the children that I didn't love them. He'd turned my absence into proof that I'd abandoned them. There's been a misunderstanding between David and me. Could you possibly speak with Emma? She's very confused. That afternoon, I drove to Ridgemont Elementary and waited for Emma to come out. When she saw me, her face lit up for just a moment before falling again. Grandpa, Daddy said you don't want to see us anymore. I knelt down to her eye level. Emma, that's not true. I love you and Marcus more than anything in the world. Then why haven't you come to visit? How do you explain adult conflict to an 8-year-old? How do you tell a child that their father has decided you're not worthy of being in their lives? Your daddy and I had a disagreement, but that doesn't mean I love you any less. Are you still going to come to my school play? I'd forgotten about the school play. Emma had been practicing for weeks to play a tree in the 3rd grade production of The Forest Friends. When is it? Next Friday.
Daddy said you probably wouldn't come because you're too busy. David was rewriting history, making me the absent grandfather who didn't care enough to show up. I'll be there, sweetheart. Front row. Emma hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I missed you, Grandpa. I missed you too. That night, I called David. What do you want, Dad? I want to talk about the kids. The kids are fine. No, they're not. Emma's teacher called me. She said Emma's been upset at school because she thinks I don't love her anymore. Maybe you should have thought of that before you stopped coming around. I stopped coming around because you told me I wasn't welcome. You were never really here anyway. Even when you were physically present, you were somewhere else mentally. David, this isn't about me anymore. It's about Emma and Marcus. They don't understand why I'm not in their lives. They'll understand when they're older. Understand what? That their father decided to punish them. Because he's angry with me. I'm not punishing them. I'm protecting them. From what? From getting attached to someone who's going to disappoint them. The conversation was going nowhere. David had decided I was a villain. And nothing I said was going to change his mind. But I could still be there for my grandchildren. Friday night, I sat in the front row of the Ridgemont Elementary Auditorium and watched Emma play a tree. She was terrible at it. She forgot her lines, waved at me in the middle of the scene, and giggled when she was supposed to be still. She was perfect. After the show, she ran to me and threw herself into my arms. Grandpa, did you see me? I was the best tree ever. You were the most beautiful tree I've ever seen. David appeared beside us, his face dark. Emma, go get your costume. We're leaving. But I want to talk to Grandpa. Now, Emma. She looked confused but obedient. She kissed my cheek and ran backstage. David turned to me. I told you to stay away. You told me I wasn't welcome in your house. This isn't your house. These are my children. They're also my grandchildren, and they love me, even if you don't. Love. David's voice was bitter. You think love is showing up to one school play. I think love is being here when it matters. Where were you when it mattered for Mom? And there it was again. Margaret. Every conversation came back to Margaret. David, I know I wasn't perfect during your mother's illness. I know I could have been there more. But I can't change the past. All I can do is try to be better now. It's too late for better. For you maybe, but not for Emma and Marcus. David was quiet for a moment. Then if you try to interfere with my parenting, I'll get a restraining order. Is that what being here for my grandchildren is? Interference? Yes.
He walked away. Pive left me standing in an elementary school auditorium, wondering how my family had fallen apart so completely. But I kept showing up, not to David's house, but to the places where Emma and Marcus were. School plays, soccer games, birthday parties at friends' houses, where David couldn't control whether I was invited. And slowly, I realized something. David's anger wasn't really about Margaret's illness. It wasn't really about me being emotionally unavailable. It was about something else entirely. And here's where I need to pause for just a moment. If you're still with me, and you're starting to see the real issue behind David's anger, hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This family drama is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. The breakthrough came 6 months later, at Marcus's 6th birthday party. One of his school friends was having a party at Chuck E. Cheese, and David couldn't very well tell the other parents that I wasn't allowed to attend. I watched David interact with the other fathers, and I saw something I'd missed before. He was trying too hard, laughing too loudly at their jokes, agreeing with everything they said, desperate to fit in, to be liked. During a quiet moment, I approached him. David, can we talk? Just for a minute. He looked around, making sure no one was watching. What? I've been thinking about what you said, about me not being there for your mother. I don't want to discuss this here. I think you're right. I wasn't there enough. But I don't think that's really what this is about. His jaw tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. I think you're angry because you feel like I didn't fight for her. Like I gave up. Drop it, Dad. And I think you're terrified that if you let yourself depend on me, I'll give up on you too. David's face went pale. Stop. You're not protecting your kids from me, David. You're protecting yourself. He turned to walk away, but I caught his arm. Your mother didn't die because I wasn't there enough. She died because cancer is a terrible disease that doesn't care how much love surrounds it. Let go of me. I couldn't save her. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'll abandon you. David pulled away from me. You already did abandon me. The day you decided work was more important than being with Mom. I was scared. David, I was terrified of watching her die, so I hid at work. It was cowardly and wrong, but it wasn't about not loving her. It was about not being strong enough to watch her suffer. For the first time in months, David really looked at me. Not through anger, not through resentment, but like he was seeing me as a person instead of a villain. She needed you, he said quietly. I know, and you left her alone. I know. I can't forgive you for that. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me be part of your children's lives. David was quiet for a long moment. Around us, the birthday party continued. Children laughing, parents chatting, normal family life happening, while our family hung in the balance. If I let you back in, David said finally, and you disappoint them the way you disappointed Mom, I'll never forgive you. I understand. And if you ever put work before family again, I won't. The business doesn't matter anymore. You and the kids are all that matter. David studied my face, looking for signs of deception, for proof that I was just saying what he wanted to hear. One chance, he said. That's all you get. That's all I need. It wasn't instant forgiveness. It wasn't a magical reconciliation where all the hurt disappeared overnight. But it was a beginning. David started inviting me to dinner once a week. I attended every school event, every soccer game, every milestone. When Emma got the flu, I brought soup. When Marcus broke his arm, I sat with him in the emergency room, while David handled the paperwork. Really present. Not just physically, but emotionally. And slowly, David began to trust me again. A year later, I went back to Gerald's office. I want to change my will again. Back to the original terms. Not exactly. I'd been thinking about this for months. About what kind of legacy I wanted to leave. About what would be fair to everyone. I want to leave David the house, and half the business. The other half goes to a trust for Emma and Marcus's education. The liquid assets get split 3 ways. 1/3 to David, 1/3 to the grandchildren's trust, and 1/3 to charity. What changed your mind? David changed. He let me back into his life, even though he didn't have to. Even though he was still angry. That took courage. Gerald smiled. It sounds like you both changed. He was right. I had changed. Margaret's death had taught me that life is fragile, that the people you love can disappear without warning. But David's anger had taught me something else, that being present means more than just showing up. It means being emotionally available, even when it's uncomfortable. 3 years after that night, when David told me I wasn't welcome, I was sitting in his living room, watching Emma and Marcus open Christmas presents. David was laughing at something Marcus had said. The house was warm, full of love, full of family. Dad, David said during a quiet moment, I wanted to thank you. For what? For not giving up on us. Even when I made it clear, you weren't wanted. You're my son. Giving up was never an option. I know that now, but for a while I thought, maybe you'd just disappear.
Like you did when Mom was sick. I'm not going anywhere, David. Good. Because Emma's starting middle school next year, and she's going to need all the support she can get. I laughed. I'll be there. I know you will. Later that night, as I was driving home, I thought about the will I'd written in anger 3 years earlier. The one that would have left David with nothing, except the knowledge that he'd pushed away his father's love. I was glad I'd changed it back. Not because David deserved to inherit my money, but because family isn't about what you deserve. It's about what you choose to give, even when the other person hasn't earned it. David hadn't earned my forgiveness for the things he'd said that night, but I'd given it anyway, because that's what love means. It means showing up, even when you're not wanted. It means fighting for relationship, even when the other person has given up. It means being present, even when being present is the hardest thing in the world. 6 months later, David called me at work. Dad, can you come over? I have something I want to tell you. When I arrived, David was sitting at his kitchen table with a serious expression. Remember when you said you couldn't save Mom? Yes, I've been thinking about that, and I realized something. You couldn't save her from cancer, but you could have saved her from dying alone. I braced myself for another lecture about my failures as a husband. And I think, David continued, that's why I was so angry. Not because you couldn't fix her illness, but because you let your fear keep you from being with her. David. But here's the thing. I did the same thing to you. I was so afraid of being disappointed again that I pushed you away before you could leave on your own. I stared at him. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm sorry for telling you that you weren't welcome, for keeping you away from the kids, for making you the villain, when really, we were both just scared of losing someone we loved. The apology I'd been waiting 3 years to hear. But now that I was hearing it, I realized it didn't matter as much as I'd thought it would. What mattered was that we were here, together, building something new from the wreckage of what we'd almost lost. You don't need to apologize, David. We both made mistakes, yeah. But mine almost cost us everything. But it didn't. We're still here. David smiled. We are, and we're not going anywhere. No. He agreed. We're not. That night, I went home and called Gerald one more time. Let me guess, he said. You want to change the will again. Not change it. Just make sure it's exactly what I want, which is, David gets everything. The house, the business, all of it. And if something happens to him, it all goes to Emma and Marcus. What about the charity clause? I'll donate to charity while I'm alive. My family needs to know they're my priority. Gerald was quiet for a moment. You know, Robert, in 30 years of practice, I've seen a lot of families tear themselves apart over money and pride. It's rare to see one put itself back together. We got lucky. No, Gerald said. You got wise, both of you. Maybe he was right. Or maybe we just finally learned what Margaret had tried to teach us during her illness. That love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Even when being present is terrifying. It's about showing up. Even when you're not sure you're wanted. It's about fighting for family. Even when family feels broken beyond repair. David and I both learned that lesson the hard way. But we learned it. And now Emma and Marcus are growing up in a family where love means staying, not leaving. Where conflict means working through problems, not walking away from them. Where being present means being emotionally available, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. 3 months ago, David got engaged to a wonderful woman named Sarah. Emma and Marcus adore her. She's bringing 2 children of her own into the family. And suddenly my quiet life has exploded into a chaos of wedding plans, blended family dynamics, and the joyful noise of 4 children running through David's house. At the engagement party, David stood up to make a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, he said. Especially my dad, who taught me that family isn't about being perfect. It's about not giving up on each other. He looked at me across the room. Dad, I know I made it hard for you to love me for a while. Thank you for loving me anyway. I raised my glass, too emotional to speak. But David understood. After 37 years of being his father, we finally understood each other. The engagement party was the last time I updated my will. This time, I added a clause that David doesn't know about. If he predeceases me, half of everything goes to his children, and half goes to Sarah's children. Because family isn't just about blood, it's about choice. And David chose Sarah. Emma and Marcus chose her kids as their siblings, which means I choose them too. That's what being present means. Not just showing up for the people you're related to, but showing up for the people they love. That's the lesson it took me almost 70 years to learn. But I learned it. And now I get to watch my grandchildren learn it too. Because that's what love is. Not the absence of conflict, but the commitment to work through conflict together. Not the promise that you'll never disappoint each other, but the promise that disappointment won't be the end of the relationship. Not the guarantee that you'll always be wanted, but the faith that you'll keep showing up even when you're not. David almost lost me that night. When he told me I wasn't welcome, I almost lost him when I changed my will, in anger instead of reaching out in love. But we didn't lose each other, because love is stronger than pride, and family is stronger than fear. And sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is refuse to give up on them, even when they've given up on themselves. Now, if this story has made you think about relationships in your own family that need healing, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, drop a comment below and tell me about a time when pride almost cost you a relationship that mattered. And definitely watch my next video where I tell you about the time my business partner tried to push me out of the company we built together, not knowing I had documented every illegal thing he'd done over the past decade. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the people who push you away are the ones who need you to stay the most.